Okay, other things you want to look out for is if the doors open and close. Okay, I know it's pretty obvious you'll start to open and close the doors when you're at the car, but check both doors, not just the one. And you want to make sure when you open your door, okay, that she closes okay. Now remember, Volkswagens, you need to kind of crack the window in order for the door to close flush. A lot of times you got to put some force into it. But if the door is, if the window's cracked, your door should shut okay. I could have put a little more force on that one, but there we go. And you want to make sure the lines line up, the chrome lines up, and that your seam from top to bottom is straight. You don't want any areas where it's closer here and it's wider at the bottom. You don't want the line lower here and higher, higher over here. Everything's got to be straight. If it's not straight, sometimes it can be a pretty simple fix by just adjusting the striker plate here. This is an old striker plate, so I can loosen the screws here and move it in and out. But there's other striker plates in the later years, from 56 and later, where then you can adjust it up and down. So a lot of times the door just needs to be adjusted that way. You just got to loosen the screws in there and see if that's adjusted okay. But you always want the door to close, get a good sounding, thunk to it, and it should line up straight. So you want to take a peek at that. Passenger door, this is a 67. This door closes pretty good. With one throw, it should close good, and the lines should all line up. Okay, this is a friend of mine's car that I'm working on his motor for, so his car is here. As you can see, his door closes pretty good too. His lines are pretty good. His chrome is pretty good as everything's lining up. The door sits in a little bit right here. So the outer part where the window is, I don't know if you can see that as a black car, but there's a step down here. Okay. That's probably a good adjustment on the striker plate. See, here's a later striker plate. Okay, I can undo the screws and move this out a little bit, so then the door, you could even tilt these, they kind of pivot even, and you can adjust the door so it lines up better. But if you open the door and the door drops, a lot of times you'll feel the door drop. Okay, hopefully you cross your fingers that the screws that hold the hinges on, maybe they're a little loose. So you want to tighten those up. If they are tight and the door still drops and you adjusted your striker plate or whatever, that could be that rot down in the corner where the heater channel meets the door post. The bugs are notorious for this, and if it's rotted down there, that could be the reason why, usually the reason why the door sags and drops. So, but what would happen is then when you go to close the door, it would hit. So then usually people lift up on the door to get it to close. But again, just make sure your doors close and open correctly. They shouldn't stick, they should not drop, they shouldn't sag, and the lines should be straight. Okay, so one of the first things you want to take a peek at when it comes to buying a bug are paint imperfections. It's one of the first things you look at when you're going around the car. This is a black car here, of course. Black is notorious for showing a lot of imperfections, swirl marks, scratches. You can rub your hand over the body and feel how bad that swirl is. If you really feel an indentation or a real nice size cut, it might not be easy to fix that. But a lot of times with swirl marks, that can buff out. But a lot of times these bugs are notorious for drips, bubbles, chips, orange peel, waves, dents, dingles, you know what I mean. A lot of times you want to check down the line of the car here, down the side. The doors, the quarter panels are common for wave areas. Maybe the bodywork wasn't good enough to smooth it out, to ice it up, and you'll get a lot of waves in that. Now when you're buying these cars online, it's very difficult to see the waves in the pictures. We bought bugs cross country and had them shipped in, and then we finally see them up close and personal. And sure enough, we see a lot of the imperfections we did not see in the pictures. So you want to be able to ask the seller, you know, what kind of imperfections are in the paint and body. And exactly what I ask is, you know, any runs, drips, chips, bubbles, waves, orange peel, things like that, and press them on it and say, you know, not for nothing, but if I'm able to get this car, is it going to be 100% of what you're explaining to me? You know, am I going to find any surprises? Am I going to see anything that's going to stick out once I get the car that I cannot see in your pictures? Press them on that and see how they react. It's a good indication if they stumble or fall or, you know, hesitate a little bit. It's a good indication that, you know, something could be up with the paint. But one way to check, even without asking them, of course, is, you know, how the quality of the paint job is in general. And I did a video on this once before on how to spot paint, you know, cheap paint jobs. And this is a black car, of course, but, you know, the beading is black here. A lot of cars, I know in some years of the Volkswagens, they did have the same color beading as the color of the car. But it was usually like a shade off or so, just to show some sort of distinguishing contrast with the paint to the fender bead. But for the most part, if you see, for an example, here's the 67 we have here. Car is blue, but the beading is blue, but it's a little off blue. It's not the same exact color blue. But you'll see paint jobs, like you can spot a cheap paint job where the whole bead is painted the same color as the car. They never took the beads out to paint the car. Or you see overspray on the rubber. So that means they never took the windows out of the car. Or you'll see sometimes door handles are painted. The seal that goes around the door handle here is also painted. So you want to take a peek at that. I see a lot of times the striker plate is also painted. So this means then that the car was never stripped down, and good indication that it could have been a rush job or it's a really cheap job, something that was maybe taken to an Earl Scheib or a Mako, or he just told his body guy, say, hey, look here, I got $500, I got $1,000, that's all I need to do for a paint job. That's all I have, and then they shoot the car. So definitely want to take a peek at that. Rear seals here on the taillights, oh my God, I'm always seeing them painted, and that I can't stand looking at. So if you see that, there always is a black seal around the rear taillights. If you see those painted or you don't see a black seal at all, good indication you got a cheap paint job. Now, like I said, this will all help you when it comes to buying online, because many guys will tell me, oh, I paid $3,000, $4,000. Even some say $6,000 for their paint job, and yet the seals are painted. So if you spent that much money, you know, why wasn't more care taken into presentation? So engine compartment areas, usually the engine seal out here, the apron seal is painted. You'll find those. These early bugs, you'll see a lot like the overrider tubes or even the bumper brackets are also painted the color of the car. So good indication that it's a cheap paint job. Okay, and another thing you've got to be careful of before buying your bug is make sure that it has a title or a registration. That's another nail in the coffin. If you're looking at a car or you drive hours to go see the car, or you buy the car online and you never asked prior to purchase if he had a clean title, then cross your fingers, hopefully he does have the clean title. Many times I come across these bugs where they either don't have the title or they bought the car from the previous owner, signed the title, and then they never actually register it themselves. You got to be careful of that, because once he puts his name on that title, he can't just hand that to you and say, okay, here, now it's yours, you can erase my name and put your name. Most of the DMVs across the country, that's kind of sacrilegious to them. You can't do that. You actually going to either need a duplicate title, or he's going to have to go ahead and then register the car and then give you the new registration or title. So you want to ask prior to purchasing the car if the car has a clear title or registration. Some states with these cars this old do not have titles. New York State doesn't have titles for cars this old. They only have a registration. So it's a small little square piece of registration, a little piece of paper, and on the back you just sign it over to the new owner. Some states, they look at that like they don't know what it is. Every state is different, so definitely look up what the rules are for your state. A lot of times these cars won't have titles at all because either they've been found in a field and the paperwork is just lost for whatever reason it is. Certain states, it's pretty easy to file for a lost title or to get a registration in your name. Other states, it's much more difficult. So definitely look into the laws and ask her, call up your local DMV and ask them some questions that you're looking to purchase a classic car, it doesn't have a title, or it does have a title, or it only has a registration. How do I go about this? It's one of the things you want to get straight before you actually purchase the car.